Made for Success Studios presents Miserably Successful No More, Power Over Stress. Written by Debjani Biswas, narrated by Bert Decoy. Biswas has a unique background, female engineer, keynote speaker, and former Fortune 50 executive. She is currently CEO of Coachieve and is the internationally best-selling author of Unleash the Power of Diversity. She is a two-time TEDx speaker, sought-after keynoter, and has inspired audiences all over the world for corporations such as Texas Instruments, Union Pacific, Ericsson, and ICF London, to name a few. She is featured regularly as a diversity and inclusion expert in media outlets including ESPN and iHeartRadio, and her original frameworks, The Five Judgments and The Orchid Effect, are being applied in over 23 countries on 5 continents. Enjoy Miserably Successful No More.
Preface. Why being miserably successful no more matters. In 2012, I was suddenly laid off from an excellent job. Though shocked to the core, being laid off was the best thing that could have happened. Being pushed out of this door forced another one to open, leading me to an excellent place. Not only am I miserably successful no more, my life today is just better, much better, in the ways that count. There is a global epidemic of the miserably successful. Perhaps misery is too strong for you. You are just stressfully successful. You appear fine outwardly, yet die a little inside each day, trapped in an unhappy yet highly paid autopilot existence. This book is designed to make you stop, as I was forced to, and take time to become mindful of who you really are and what you can achieve. 3 observations caused me to write this book. 1. We create much of our own stress by ignoring our authentic style, introvert or extrovert, assertive or mild, measured or quick. 2. Amazing improvement is possible from tiny, courageous choices to be perfectly imperfect and speak and live our truth. 3. These choices depend upon a powerful vision, a laser-sharp focus and direction. When applied with purpose, these shifts can lead to peace, reduced stress, greater purpose. I grew up happy, but somewhere along the way became a miserably successful version. Stressed out, fearful, always running. Bronnie Ware, an Australian nurse, reported the top 5 regrets of the dying in a blog called Inspiration and Chai. These were the regrets. 1. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. 2. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. 3. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. 4. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. 5. I wish that I had let myself be happier. How do we jumpstart the way back to letting ourselves be happier? First, we stop lying to ourselves and others. Next, we cut through the clutter and stop doing irrelevant things. Then we start doing what we were meant to do and excel at. What would happen if we applied an engineering mindset of data harvesting and pattern recognition to behavioral differences? Driving in my car, happily exhausted after speaking for hours on this topic, a thought pops into my mind. I have enough, physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. At this moment, I experience equanimity. Peace settles inside my car, like drifting snowflakes, curling into the sides, swirling as it lands into the stillness of my heart. I am reminded of a quote. Now and then, it is good to pause in our pursuit of happiness and just be happy. This book is, therefore, also my gift to you, a way of saying thank you for picking up the pieces and dusting me off when I fell to the floor in an explosion of professional and personal crisis. Here are the key principles, collated as uncomfortable, stark truths. We, who are otherwise scrupulously honest, lie to ourselves, often about our stress and well-being levels, while suppressing our dreams and hopes. We, who are so kind to our friends and families, show ourselves no or little respect or kindness. We fill our lives with so much stuff that we lose focus and stop thinking with clarity and direction. Read this book with an open mind, recognize, and leverage your unique style to improve authentic success and well-being. Redefine success so your life revolves around more than money and prestige alone. Recognize the choices you make to self-sabotage, then apply practical tools to stop doing these things. Along the way, learn to power over stress, listening to the melody of your emerging life song. So, together, we can be miserably successful no more. Section 1. Introduction. This section outlines how to navigate easily through the book, plus the importance of understanding the global epidemic of the miserably successful. We explore 2 questions. Why are you reading a book entitled Miserably Successful No More? What is your vision or purpose in life? Chapter 1. A door slams shut. I'm sorry, but you have been laid off. Gavin's office was tastefully appointed, with pictures of his family, original artwork, an elegant vase with fresh flowers. No, wait, focus. This was important. He was saying something really important, but it just didn't make sense. The human resources manager sitting next to him was looking at me with a worried look in his kind eyes. Why did this feel like an out-of-body experience? The words floated through the air, some entering conscious thoughts, others escaping through the windows to the woods below. Phrases swirled. It was a difficult decision. A number of executives impacted in your demographic. Do you have any questions? Will you sign this document within the next few days? Our CEO's speech on flattening the organization and investing more on advertising had driven a stake through my career and future. It felt like swimming underwater, moisture in my ears, muffled, heavy, a rushing sound. How could this have happened to me? I had survived 2 decades in global organizations and was now an executive at a Fortune 50 corporation. In 2009, when 3/4 of my team was impacted, I had escaped the dreaded list. This must have been difficult for you. Really appreciate your concern. I could hear the words coming from my mouth, and both the leaders visibly relaxed, telegraphing that this would not escalate, no need to call employee assistance or security, always on hand for events like this. How did I know this? Unfortunately, I had experience delivering these messages to others from the opposite end of the table. So, this was what it felt like. Why Jennifer Davidson, name changed for anonymity, dropped her keys 3 times in 2 minutes after receiving a similar message. Why she told us her husband was out of town, and she had never once received a does not meet expectations rating, as she cried silently, dry tears, bewildered, almost glued to her chair. I, Debjani Biswas, had been let go, rejected, discarded, rendered obsolete. Slowly, I walked back to the office. One of my direct reports was waiting with a sad face. Bad news travels fast. The HR manager assigned to my case knocked on the door. If you have anything to download before handing me your laptop, please do so now. You don't have to pack up your things right away. When would you like to return and clear out your office? Over the weekend, I whispered. Fewer people to see my shame, the voice inside agreed. My phone pinged. A reminder for lunch with my ex-boss and lifelong mentor. Should I reschedule? No. Leave now. Go to the car. Look around. Think. Is there something here that you don't want them to see as they pack your boxes? My office neighbor and good friend stood by the door. So sorry to hear the news, Debjani. Can I help in any way? I replied pleasantly, calmly, as if nothing was wrong. Thank you. No, nothing. Appreciate the offer, though. An hour later, I quietly picked up my purse, phone, and empty laptop bag. Scurrying down the corridor to the car, the term walk of shame finally made sense. I sat in the car for about 15 minutes. It will be okay, an inner voice said. Will it really? Challenged another voice. No, this is the end. Last night as I was sleeping, I dreamt, marvelous error, that I had a beehive here inside my heart, and the golden bees were making white combs and sweet honey from my old failures. Antonio Machado. Chapter 2. New Beginnings, an Exploration. This chapter explores two fundamental concepts: where you want to go, your vision, the three-legged stool, your current support system's stability. I will share some of my experiences following the layoff in order to make these concepts come to life for you. Developing a vision. In the months that followed, I went through the predictable stages of change. The numbness continued for many days. I cycled between resistance and denial, anger and shock, an odd cocktail of embarrassment, shame, bravado, and boldness, with rare glimpses of exhilarating freedom and new avenues, and slowly, very slowly, crawled into exploration and the occasional glimpse of possibilities, an exciting hopefulness. My son asked me a deceivingly simple question. For years you have been talking about writing a book. What are you waiting for? This simple question had no compelling response. I decided to follow a path untraveled, exploring the world of speaking and writing. My first major event was at the International Coach Federation Global Conference in London, addressing business professionals from 23 countries and many languages. After the session on reducing bias using a practical global toolkit, people clustered around, asking for autographs on conference brochures. Their heartfelt support signaled that the message, unity through diversity, of style, culture, gender, generation, meant something. Let's pause here. It took a traumatic, life-changing event for me to rethink my path. I was almost forced to develop a vision. You don't have to go through a career crisis or a life-changing event to answer the question. Do you have a vision? If so, is it compelling enough to powerfully shape your behaviors? Some people get stuck when facing adversity. Others find the grit and resilience to emerge stronger on the other side. A lot depends on one's support systems when life knocks us down. We will explore the three-legged stool of stability in a minute. But first, please write down your vision with as much detail around it as you can articulate. Author's note: record your vision in the appendix section. To honor diverse preferences, there are blank pages for less structured reflection and action planning, as well as structured worksheets. A few topics have worksheets embedded in the text also. Coming back to that in a moment, I experienced what neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, master practitioner Lane Pierce calls future memories. This is a very powerful tool I want you to practice. When you finalize your vision, perhaps you already have one, imagine precisely what it looks like. What does this moment feel like? What exactly are you doing? What are you wearing? What are you holding in your hand? Where is this happening? Location. Make a vivid movie in your mind and play it over and over again. This tool is incredibly powerful. It can drag you through the drudgery of the difficult things that make glamorous goals achievable. I could see and feel and almost taste it, the conviction that one day there would be a book in my hand, autographed and handed over to a participant just like this one. Fast forward again, July 2013. A knock on the door, a package. Fingers trembling, I tore open the tape and binding and gently, reverently pulled out the first copy of Unleash the Power of Diversity. As I took it to the framed photograph of my late father and said, "Durga, Durga," my culture's equivalent to bless this, I was shocked to see an obvious anomaly in the cover page. From the sublime to the ridiculous, with emotions jumping all over the place, instantly transported back to the stressful place that is so familiar. Self-doubt reared its ugly head with familiar questions. How could you be so stupid? What were you thinking? Voices of past critics played in my mind, comparing me negatively to others, memories of past failures getting stronger. And in that instant, a shift took place, a feeling of peace, of equanimity, of inner self. The finished work product of a year was a reality, and it had gone through a nightmarish 6 months of editing and formatting. There had been moments of such frustration that the project almost died. We dug, battered, and powered our way through it anyways. My son's words echoed in the background. Enjoy every minute, for you will never get a second chance to experience what writing a first book feels like. I experienced a deep sense of satisfaction and the realization that none of this would have been possible if I had not been laid off. A surprising and powerful learning point. Gently, I placed the book in front of my late father's picture and took a photograph. Every moment, the vision, learning, helping, teaching with graceful, flawed authenticity, comes a step closer. A series of books on 4 key aspects of diversity: culture, style, gender, and generation. You picked up this book because you understood the phrase miserably successful. You may have laughed and said, I am successful but not miserable, just stressed out sometimes. Or, thank goodness I am happily unsuccessful, a choice I made. Or, a little more honestly, you may have said to someone else, this describes me perfectly. It doesn't matter. The fact is you picked it up and you, like me, are a work in progress. A combination of events rocked my world to the core. Professional, the layoff, and personal, potentially life-threatening health issues. Struggling through the grief and shock, there was a desperate need for purpose and sanity in my life. For the next 2 months, I embarked on a journey of self-discovery to arrive at the vision. Learning, helping, teaching, with graceful, flawed authenticity. What is your vision, and does it inspire you toward the life you deserve? Close your eyes for at least a minute. See vividly how your life is today, the beautiful patches, the not so pretty, the hidden, the empty. What would it be like if you weren't so stressed so often? Now open your eyes slowly. Think about a vision, a dream, a one day I wish statement you made to yourself yesterday or decades ago. Decide if you were afraid of your own greatness or will do what it takes to be the best version of yourself. How do we operationalize this visualizing technique? Author's note. There's an inspirational photograph of a pivotal event in front of me as a reminder that editing this manuscript, not my forte, is part of the vision. Experience severe frustration, suddenly realizing I am editing an older version. Remind myself that professional editing follows and regain perspective. The three-legged stool, stability of support systems. Before boldly going where no human has gone before, we will assess the stability of our intertwined support systems. Like a three-legged stool, we need at least 2 to be strong. I was able to make radical changes because, while my internal leg was wobbling, the other 2 legs stood firm until balance was restored. The 3 types of supports are practical, career, financial stability, professional life, avocation. This is, of course, relative to an individual's monetary needs and obligations. Internal, your style, personality, abilities, skills, strength of character, integrity, personal power, and self-confidence. External, networks, including family, friends, strategic alliances, business colleagues, sponsors, leaders, professional organizations. Rate where you are now on each of these 3 legs, using a 1 to 10 scale if useful to you. Next, go back to a period that is significant to you, comparing your numbers then and now. Author's note. As with all the reflections in the book, do this mentally or in the appendix pages as suited to your information processing style. When you start following your vision, reducing stress, doing more of the things that increase your well-being, your balance is critical. Identify your strongest sources of support here, and we will assess danger zones later. Determine practical aspects of your finances. Set appropriate guardrails for peace of mind. Money shouldn't be an obsession, but knowing you have enough, if that is accurate, is a huge gift. Enough may be less than you thought. Analyze current life choices, which may be misaligned with your values. Do you have to buy or lease a luxury car every 3 years because one of your direct reports has one? I am making assumptions here. That you are financially comfortable if you are reading a book called Miserably Successful No More. That may or may not be accurate. If the latter, then of course Maslow's hierarchy of needs applies. We can't go to self-actualization until we have a roof over our heads and ongoing food and electricity. Physical support is the first thing that must be in place for our three-legged stool to be stable. Finally, how will you navigate this book most effectively? The book is divided into sections, focusing on what is making us miserable, how we define happiness and success, things we can stop doing to free up precious energy, skills we can build to get what we really want from life. The most effective way is to read it through, then go back to critical sections and action plan. If stress is a major factor in your life right now, focus on that first. Stress makes intelligent, otherwise sensible people behave foolishly and self-destructively. Chronic stress can, over time, even be life-threatening. Hopefully you will recognize and break your unproductive stress cycles. Once you realize how you are getting in your own way, you can refocus and reframe. Am I able to write so much about stress because I am so good at managing it? Not at all. I was ill-equipped, by both nature and nurture, to handle the pressures of life and have suffered greatly as a result. For decades, stress has been a constant companion, like a dirty windshield, obstructing and marring even the most magnificent view ahead. My head has known it, my mind has felt powerless to deal with it. Together we can do, be, learn, give back, help, experience so much. You are not alone on this journey. Section 2. Who are you? Foundational tools and skill building. This section focuses on self-awareness and skill building, customized to your unique style, recognizing others' different personality and behavior traits. We discuss both traditional and original style diversity tools. Emotional intelligence, the Roven Bar-On model, 2 truths and a lie, an original communication style self-assessment, the 5 judgments, a bias and stereotyping framework. Chapter 3, Foundational Concepts. In the first section, the discussion focused on the case for action, the importance of reducing stress, recognizing the toll of being miserably successful. I asked if you had a compelling vision and whether you were moving purposefully toward it. This section is about self-awareness, your personality as it relates to others, and how your style works for or against you. The foundational concepts and skill-building tools in this section are emotional intelligence, self-awareness and interpersonal skills, 2 truths and a lie, an original tool on diverse communication styles, style norms, a self-assessment on deep-rooted style values and norms, the 5 judgments, a framework on style biases and stereotypes. Style diversity skill building is based upon emotional intelligence. First, we understand our individual preferences. Next, we realize how we relate to others who are different from us. We are born with a certain set of behavioral characteristics and develop strong beliefs about the value of these and opposing behaviors in others. These are right versus wrong judgments. By using pattern recognition and data harvesting, we can uncover, as the true experts of ourselves, who we really are. In this chapter, we will explore emotional intelligence and communication styles. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, EI, is a composite of how we see and express ourselves individually, relate to others, make decisions, and handle stress. There is an ongoing heated debate between technologists and behavioral professionals about the importance of EQ, emotional quotient, versus IQ, intelligence quotient. There is a fundamental difference between emotional and traditional intelligence. IQ relates to academic skills, book smarts, functional competence in technical areas, and testing abilities. A person may be, and often is, both emotionally immature and brilliant. For example, a technically competent person may struggle in project funding because of arrogance and a poor relationship with her boss. Why is emotional intelligence so critical to being miserably successful no more? We interact with others every day. Awareness of our emotional responses and how we relate to others, particularly under pressure, helps us change both the process and content of our story. Summary of key emotional intelligent composites. Self-perception, self-regard, self-actualization, emotional self-awareness. Self-expression, emotional expression, assertiveness, independence. Interpersonal relationships, empathy, social responsibility. Decision-making, problem-solving, reality testing, impulse control, stress management, flexibility, stress tolerance, optimism. This framework is an excellent summary of the key concepts around emotional intelligence. Ideally, please take the self-assessment at mhs.com or self-identify areas where you exercise these muscles more than in other areas. While the skills alone are important, the interaction between two or more factors is more powerful and practical. High in assertiveness and low in flexibility? If in a position of power, you could be enforcing a my way or the highway leadership style so people don't want to work for you. Low in assertiveness and high in flexibility? You may be saying yes to a lot of things for fear of repercussions, instead of courageously saying no. A person who is low in emotional intelligence, particularly self-awareness, empathy, flexibility, and stress tolerance, often struggles with pattern recognition, adaptation, and growth. There is also a multiplier effect. Lack of self-awareness often equals low learning agility. Remaining authentic while fitting into a new environment requires social awareness, which is a key component of emotional intelligence. Which 3 EQ muscles do you exercise most often, and which 3 the least? We all have certain behavioral tendencies. Recognizing that our strengths, overused, can turn into weaknesses is the first step. Impatient listening is my challenge, linked to high assertiveness. The flip side is the positive aspect of that trait, getting things done quickly. 2 truths and a lie, an original style diversity communication tool. We expand our self-discovery with a communication style assessment that I titled 2 Truths and a Lie. This gauges how blunt versus indirect we are, particularly in moments of tension or conflict. The title is designed to jolt awareness. Being too polite and nice is a lie sometimes, the same way that blurting out the unvarnished truth can destroy relationships and people. What is your innate 2 truths and a lie preference? Each of us has a natural tendency toward bluntness or softness. Understanding this diversity of style is critical. First, to understand the value of the opposing style. Second, to adjust our response for more effective communication. In interactions particularly, where there is tension, conflict, differences of opinion, or unmet needs, most of us tend toward one of 3 responses. 1. The blunt truth. 2. The palatable truth. 3. The glossy lie. Hence the phrase, 2 truths and a lie. 1. The blunt truth. Teller uses the hammer approach, the truth, the plain truth, and nothing but the truth. The advantage of the hammer approach is trust. What you see is what you get. The hammer is real. She is the canary in the coal mine. She tells it like it is. The hammer is usually respected for her courage. The disadvantage: hammers can be bullies, hurt people's feelings, leave body bags, have low followership, and be disliked or actively avoided. 2. The palatable truth. Teller combines honesty with kindness. He is able to give the news of positive and negatives about the situation or the person without resorting to mean-spirited honesty. His courage and unselfishness, not having to be right all the time, enables him to develop deep, true relationships without leaving body bags behind him. This involves skillful use of emotional intelligence skills such as empathy, assertiveness, flexibility, stress tolerance. 3. The glossy liar is like a paintbrush, agrees with everything we say, tells us that we are great, that all is well. Sometimes he does this because of fear that people will see him for the imposter that he is in his mind. So, in order to be liked or loved, he is a people pleaser, saying what he thinks others want to hear. Some glossy liars will also whisper negative things about you behind your back. The glossy liar is usually liked, can be pitied, invisible, mistrusted, disrespected. Obviously, each extreme style has positives and negatives. Communication occurs when the messages we send are understood and received. Effective interactions, therefore, are not just about content. They are about context and process. Some important considerations include style preference, our history, the stress each of us is under, the state of mind the receiver is in, how much kindness he needs, how much honesty he can take. Personality, power, stress, and cultural norms also impact every interaction. Safety matters. If a person doesn't enjoy a conflict, and the person is in power, e.g. parent or boss, is critical and judgmental, it feels safer to gloss over the truth. Conversely, a safe, high-trust, mutually respectful relationship makes it easier to be blunt. Leveraging situation-specific approaches and tools after a quick multivariate analysis lets us become nimble in diverse communications. We can use the blunt truth without toxic results in high-trust relationships, though it must be used sparingly or else it abuses this trust. Most of us lack the skill to be totally honest without being hurtful, so we leave out critical facts. This is not ideal either. Are you actually speaking the entire truth, or glossing over important things, conveniently choosing to share inconsequential truths? Over time, white lies build up like a disease, causing you more stress, eroding your respect in yourself. On the other extreme, when we misuse the hammer style, using cruelty disguised as honesty, we alienate others. Hammers typically have more enemies than brushes. Do more people like you or respect you? Both are important. Which one does your behavior drive? What would it take for you to shoot straight and deliver negative feedback and keep the relationship strong? For most of us, speaking the palatable truth takes time, skills, and practice. Now let's make the two truths and a lie instrument come alive with an example. Scenario: dinner party. Background information: the hostess has invited 16 friends for a home-cooked dinner. She has taken the day off to cook, and the room is tastefully appointed. When you take a bite of the fried fish that she said was so difficult to make, you almost choke. It is too salty and quite inedible. At that moment, your hostess stops by, and noticing that you are eating the fish, asks, "How do you like the fish?" Here are some examples, operationalizing the two truths and a lie spectrum of responses. Blunt truth: it's too salty and dry. I don't like it. Glossy lie: it's wonderful. I love it. Palatable truth: I really appreciate the effort you put into hosting so many of us today. What are your first instincts? We tend to land on one or the other extreme intrinsically. Most people have a self-serving bias and immediately self-identify as being palatable truth-sayers. There's obviously a cultural aspect to this. I'm climbing up a slippery slope of generalization with this next statement. After having lived in both the Americas and Asia, my impression is that white lies are labeled social necessities in the U.S. Being blunt is more acceptable in much of Europe and Asia. Some business functions also lean toward one or the other. Operations, finance, and engineering are more fact-based and blunt. Sales, marketing, public relations are more polished and indirect. Who amongst us hasn't seen a hairdresser gushing about someone's lovely hair, when, in fact, that person's hair is sparse or unattractive? Between males and females, men tend to be more direct than females. Of course, there are direct, aggressive even, females, and indirect, euphemistic males. I'm talking about percentages, not absolutes. Self-awareness and skill building. So, what shall we do with this data about our communication style? For a month, observe yourself in multiple interactions and see which of the 3 communication styles you lean toward. Don't judge or even try to correct. Just observe. Mentally rehearse what the 3 options or more could have been, especially in sticky situations. It's easy to be pleasant when both parties agree. What happens to your normal responses under stress or conflict? In these interactions, reflect on what another response could have been, all casually, in a non-judgmental way. For example, if you are always blunt in talking about something and declaring proudly, "That's who I am," follow the data. Are fewer and fewer people reaching out to you to partner on projects? Are you willing to try something a little different for at least one of the next 10 interactions? While staying authentic to yourself, can you move toward use of the palatable truth? What is your purpose in being brutally candid every time? Why is keeping the relationship not a consideration for you? Is your truth a crutch? An excuse for hurting others in the name of honesty? You may be surprised at how often you don't voice the truth when you tried this exercise. You may have fooled yourself into thinking that this doesn't happen often. Try this for a month. Just thinking mindfully about what you really feel about this situation and what you really want to say. Obviously, the glossy brush would really benefit from practicing this technique. And so also would some hammers. No judgment. No, but I shouldn't feel this way. That's unreasonable, ungrateful. Just respect and be aware of what the true thoughts are in your mind. Every time there is a twinge of tension, make a note of that also. Is the tension higher because I agreed verbally and didn't really want to? Or because I disagreed and noticed a frown on the other person's face which I interpreted to be a disapproval of my action? Just be aware. And then, if you are prepared and have developed some level of skill, try this. See what happens if you say what you mean, exactly as you mean it, for something very low risk with someone who is either an ally or very approachable. Definitely don't practice on your boss or someone in power the first time. Again, remember these are suggestions to be applied with common sense and caution. Don't do anything to jeopardize your success or career, obviously. For me, speaking my mind was liberating beyond belief. The transition that I experienced from people pleaser, brush, to overly blunt person, hammer, to hopefully palatable truth teller, glue gun, took decades. Of course, the pendulum swung too far the first few times I tried to change. Though it cost me in relationships and resources, the trade-off has been worth it. Now let's come to you. Are you willing to try something new? If so, let us also combine this technique, self-awareness about what you really think, with the tactical tool 5 Ways to Say Yes. See page 73. If we understand the why of our behavior, fear of blank, and combine it with the how, 5 Ways to Say Yes, the behavior change can be powerful. Just looking calmly, without judgment, at your calendar will tell you a lot. First, how to refocus if you are not spending your time on what's really important. Second, that even within a schedule as tight as yours might be, there are ways to build in breathing space. What is one simple thing you can do to recenter yourself in a frantically busy time? It may be a surprisingly trivial solution. This book is about style diversity, about recognizing what is natural and life-saving for your unique style. It is about honoring who you are inside regardless of the tired stereotypes you have harbored for years, maybe decades, of who you should be. As you read this example, start jotting down the simple solutions that will reduce your stress during high-volume, high-pressure pockets of time in your life. Let me give you a concrete example. Arriving the night before a keynote is a simple tool I use wherever possible. After several flight delays, there was a very stressful event where I literally walked into the banquet hall and started speaking without breakfast or lunch. So I arrived the night before. Strategic buffering for critical events has a positive benefit-cost ratio. Whatever your solutions are, first think about why you are packing your calendar so tight. The need to be indispensable, to be wanted, to be included is fairly basic, and stronger in some than others. Saying no will not automatically reduce other people's regard for you unless you do so rudely and without good explanation. The underlying fear in saying no is that we won't be asked again. Also, that we will somehow lose a relationship or other people's respect or affection by that word. To be brutally honest, there are some people for whom that is true. They like you more when you are pliable and agreeable. So, with eyes wide open, decide whether your peace of mind is worth the cost of this loss. I ask, therefore, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Chapter 4. Style Norms, Biases, and Stereotyping. I have always been different in some aspect. As a female student in an otherwise all-male classroom, gender stood out, but my assertive style fit right in. As an Asian, working for decades in North America, my focus on execution and speed that fit well with some cultures and organizations was too direct in another. Therefore, I am personally familiar with the biases and stereotypes associated with diversity. While race, religion, and gender are more obvious and visual, style diversity is equally prone to bias and judgments. I am currently more outspoken than most. Also, a long-term thinker by instinct. Sometimes these differences work for me. At other times, they work strongly against me. The two tools we will use in this chapter are a self-assessment of your deep-rooted beliefs and norms around style, an original bias and stereotyping framework called the 5 Judgments. Together, these tools uncover values we hold strongly around good and bad personality traits, behaviors, overall style. We all have style biases. The first step toward reducing them is understanding that they exist. We tell people to speak up or stop talking so much, to be more assertive or less aggressive because it doesn't look good on minorities, millennials, women, insert any stereotype here. Like master puppeteers, we try to orchestrate behavior. If we have enough power, they comply and put on the desired mask. I understand this game exceedingly well. Wearing masks became so routine, sometimes it was hard to remember who the real person was inside. We all wear masks, sometimes for our very survival. In the future, my hope is that my mask can be transparent and rarely used. It can be a helpful self-exploration exercise to fill out this worksheet and really think about unconscious messaging that has caused and reinforced our values, beliefs, biases. Author's note: this tool is so important that it is in the body of the book as well as in the appendix. What are my style norms and biases? I would be happy, embarrassed, relieved, okay either way, or fill in the blank, if I were married to or dating a really chatty person. This is because I dislike, appreciate, admire, am curious about, or fill in the blank, people who speak up for themselves, even if their viewpoint is controversial or against the majority opinion. This is because I feel impressed by, uncomfortable around, irritated by, or fill in the blank, by people who are always well-dressed and well-groomed. This is because if I walked into a party with a large group of strangers and a few people I know, I would be intimidated, exhilarated, neutral, or fill in the blank. This is because I connect most with people who are, fill in the blank, age, culture, style, gender descriptor. This is because being late for a lunch appointment with a close friend is not a big deal, rude, embarrassing, or fill in the blank. This is because I am annoyed by people who are, do, say, or fill in the blank. This is because behavioral beliefs are learned in childhood or developed through personal experiences as an adult. They could be positive or negative traits about people around you. Some of my behavioral beliefs about my peers and those around me are: the 5 judgments, a style stereotyping framework. Overview. This is an original tool I introduced in 2013 in my first book, Unleash the Power of Diversity. There are judgments that people make about us, many of which have nothing to do with the caliber of our work or our output. These are often superficial judgments made based on how we look, sound, and behave, and they make or mar careers, relationships, and lives. Reputational currency, physical impact, auditory cues, distinguishing markers, work product. Reputational currency. Long before you personally interact with a person at the office or workplace, she has preconceived notions of you. This could be based on your individual brand, word of mouth, or social media. If there is no data about you as a person, she will make a judgment of you based on her stereotyping and unconscious bias on this first element. Physical impact. As soon as you interact with this person, she forms an impression of you based on 2 key things: your visual appeal and the power you project. Visual appeal relates to attractiveness, clothing, posture, apparent age range, smell, fashion sense, and overall presence. In the style context, your body language, how you walk into a room, how you shake someone's hand, and eye contact form critical first impressions of your personality. Auditory cues. The third element is based upon how you sound. This is a composite of pitch and tone of voice, giggles versus laughter, as well as the volume, speed, and number of words used. Unconsciously held beliefs cause us to judge the same thing differently depending on our frame of reference. For example, if a person speaks loudly, we may judge them to be confident or too aggressive, depending on our point of reference. Distinguishing markers. A distinguishing marker refers to the 3 to 5 things that make you unique and different. A distinguishing marker can be physical, behavioral, or situational. What makes you stand out in one situation may be the norm in another. This judgment is particularly critical in leveraging style diversity, as we uncover deep-rooted biases toward or against specific traits. Work product. The 5th element relates to output: quality, originality, value, volume. Are you very good at your functional area of expertise? It is hard to accurately gauge output in most cases, so we measure it using proxies, such as the person's vocal beliefs, or lack of, in their output, or how attractive their presentation slides are. Also noteworthy is the fact that 4 judgments may occur before we examine a person's output. How to use the 5 judgments tool. First, think about how people judge you based on the 5 judgments. If we don't understand how powerful these biases are, the stereotypical judgments people make about us within a few seconds, we are living in a fool's paradise. Pay special attention to your distinguishing markers. Later in the book, we will do more data gathering around this judgment. Next, think about the style judgments you make about people, particularly those different from you. If they are reserved and you are outgoing, mild and you are assertive, how do you respond to them? Label them, value them. Apply this in the context of work functions. Do you expect finance professionals to pay greater attention to detail and salespeople to be more outgoing than computer support? Are you an extrovert or an introvert, a hammer or a brush? That could determine how much you interact with strangers or the way you behave in large groups, or whether you highlight your own or others' achievements. All these behaviors will have a direct impact on what people think about you and on how you think about yourself. Your unique style results in judgments that have a powerful effect on your success and well-being. This process works both ways. Based on your style norms and biases, as you filled them out, you in turn are constantly making judgments, often unconsciously, about others. Is your distinguishing marker a confirmation of your line of work or completely different? If the latter, maybe you are in the wrong line of work because it pays so much, a golden cage that you need to fly out of. Of all the judgments, the distinguishing markers are the most critical. They could relate to one of the other 4 judgments or stand alone. A distinguishing marker in one situation is not so in another. My gender was of no consequence in an all-girls convent school, and often the only descriptor when I was a female student in engineering school. Your distinguishing markers are critical in self-discovery. Take time to reflect on your distinguishing markers, what they are now, and what you want them to be improved to while remaining authentic. List 3 to 5 of your distinguishing markers. Now, explain the concept to a few close friends, peers, or family members, emphasizing the importance of honesty. Instead of asking leading questions like, "Don't you think my distinguishing marker is an attention to detail?" Ask open-ended questions so you get their unbiased feedback. Here are some questions you can start the dialogue with. 1. What are my distinguishing markers? 2. What do people notice about me when they first interact with me? 3. What am I known for? Write down what they list as your distinguishing markers. Foundational concepts and skill-building summary. Skill building starts with self-awareness and other aspects of emotional intelligence, coupled with a clarity of our own communication style. We have style biases around how people, or we ourselves, should behave. When uncovering personal values and norms of individual and interpersonal behavior, characteristics include volume, chatty or reserved, assertiveness, strong or pleasant, timeliness, prompt or late, and flexibility, spontaneous versus organized. In addition to the EQ I2.0 Emotional Intelligence Tool, MHS.com, I recommend the Myers-Briggs Type Instrument, MBTI, for personality and the Thomas Kilmann Instrument for Conflict Styles, TKI, both at CPP.com. During my technical education, we frequently use the term feedback. Literally, feedback is defined with respect to an attribute with the purpose of adjusting to an optimal point. The purpose of a gauge is to take temperature readings, for example, in an air conditioning system such as a thermostat. If it says the temperature is too cold, the data is used to turn it up a degree. If your assessment says you are too cold, turn up your temperature a degree. If you are too fired up to think straight, turn your emotional temperature down. That, in the physical sciences, is the immediate value of feedback. Logic fails when our egos get in the way of feedback, morphing into denial or sugarcoating. The thermostat doesn't shout back to the valve, "No, you're wrong. I am not 69 degrees. How dare you label me that way?" Life is simple when we leave our egos at the door. These are snapshots in time, malleable, changeable, and ready for the next round. If you want to get better, then use feedback the way it was meant to be used, as a valuable data point for course correction.